Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we are going to be talking about tech class, top 10 tech champions in the game currently, in my opinion. Again, the standard disclaimer, I know many of you guys hate it, so I'm trying to cut it short, but in effect this is a mixture of my own thoughts and opinions combined with current game relevance and trends. This does heavily feature and take in consideration Alliance, War, and Battlegrounds, and the competitive game modes. Effectively, this list is for competitive players, for competitive use, because any champion can do well in story quest. These are the champions that we use when losing matters. These are the champions that the best players will rely on to get the best rewards in the game. This isn't taking in consideration stuff like, oh, it's very cool for incursions because you can place out 50,000 powers things on somebody or anything like that. Because again, for game modes like that, you can use a ton of different champions and they don't have to be max rank, and you can get through just about everything in the game without a 7-star rank 4. There's not a single piece of content where you have to have a 7-star rank 4 or a 7-star rank 3 even, for that matter. Aside from competitive game modes, because there you are playing against other people and other rosters, and your chance to win is directly affected by the top ranks of your champions. So these are the champions you actually invest your catalysts in hopes that they will enable you to perform better in game modes where winning is not guaranteed. So these are the champions that the best players use in the hardest, most competitive game modes for the best, most consistent results. I can't put it more simple than that. And we're going to discuss a few champions like that across the board as well. But first of all, let's go to the all tech top 10. And this features only 7 stars, obviously. So champions that are not out of 7 stars, like Ghost, let's say, do not feature in these lists. So previously it was Red Skull, Warlock, Shocker, Starhand, SpiderMan, Prowler, Shuri, Guardian, Omega Sentinel, Jacobkanda, Penny, and Arcade. Now there are a lot of changes to that, and we're going to start with honorable mentions. Shuri, in my opinion, does not really make the top 10 list anymore. Defensively, she's nowhere near as much of a threat as she used to be, and offensively, there are just better alternatives that answer more current threats. Overall, I still think she's a great champion. I still think she's a worthwhile champion to rank. I think she's not far off the top 10. And the best thing about Shuri, obviously, is the fact that she's great for long-form content. If you're doing Necropolis, she'll do well in there. And, for Alliance Wars, and she has her uses across the game. But is she currently one of the more relevant champions? Absolutely not in the tech class. You do see her less and less overall. She has some relevance left in Battleground, some relevance left in Alliance War, and she's a good champion. But the game's kind of shifting a bit in a different direction. Right, that said, besides Shuri, another champion a lot of people would expect to see here is probably Bastion. I don't think he has quite earned it so far. He's better than some of the champions specifically for like Alliance War, but overall, I do not think he has had much, if any, impact on the game realistically. More often than not, when I have seen people use Bastion, I have seen them lose the matches as well, but that's the point. I know that there are a handful of people who have taken him to rank 4 because he's new and he's shiny, and he is gaining relevance with the increase in some of the mutant defensive threats, but overall I am absolutely not convinced that he deserves to be there. Time will tell, 6 months down the line, if we do see him performing well. Obviously I do not have any personal vendetta against Bastion. Who knows, he might make the top 10, but currently I do not value him in there. Another champion is Arcade. Arcade's use kind of was like a bit of, he came out, he was somewhat underwhelming, not many people used him, he got his tune-up, he kind of became a nightmare defender on some specific metas, and then everybody ranked up Arcade. We do see a lot less of him recently. There are a handful of rank 4s that I have seen, but overall, he definitely has kind of like went up and down in his usability, and how he will age, we're going to get to see in, short future probably. But is definitely also a solid, good rank up. And that is one of the things about tech class in general. I think this list is going to be one of the more controversial ones, because there are a lot of champions that are good, or like very good, but there are a lot of champions that are good, but they're not like exceptional. Tech class doesn't have its, Thanos and Serpent. Tech class doesn't have its Photon or Nick Fury and Kate Bishop and what have you, really. Tech class has a ton of very, very, solid champions, but they're not running away as like an absolute, power, couple in the top of the tech class. I think, therefore, the rankings, even down to the top 15, are very much open to interpretation. And I'm sure a lot of people will find issue with that. So another champion I want to give a special shout out is Ironheart. I think Ironheart's actually like a very, very solid champion. I have a rank 3. I love using my rank 3. She's one of my AQ champions, so I actually use her more than many other champions in the game just because of the nature of Alliance quests. And I like her. She's quite solid for Alliance War, which is probably her like most significant use. Fortunately, she's not particularly great for battlegrounds, but overall, as in like a toolkit, I think she's very, very good. If she was just a little bit more fast, a little bit more damage there, especially in that level 1 rotation, she would do much better than she's doing currently. And I think it's very good and useful to have Ironheart. Don't necessarily think you need a rank 3 or rank 4 Ironheart for most of the stuff, to put it out there. But I like her for a ton of like niche or oddball things there. And in reality, like, her biggest thing is she actually can do a ton of matchups very, very well. The problem is that if she is going in the trickier matchups, you need to alternate her playstyle. You need to typically rely on the level 1s, for instance, on the dot. And if you can't have like an aggressive fight with Ironheart, her damage suffers for it, because obviously you typically want to drop a couple of level 1s and go for level 2. There are plenty of champions who don't really allow for that. And that is, kind of holding her back a bit. Another champion that previously has made the lists and might make a return with the influx of Nick Fury's running around now, but it's Penny Parker. I still like the champion a lot. I very recently actually got her as 7-star, and I do want to rank her up at some point, but first I need to get her awakened. And I think she's, again, very close to top 10. I think there's an argument to be made for placing her in the top 10. I currently have her just outside of that. So these are like some of the champions. Like, this really could easily be top 16 video, because I do not think there's, big difference in between the top 10 and the champions that are just outside of, because of the nature of how tech class is. Another one's Omega Sentinel. Omega Sentinel, again, Battleground's probably her like weakest side, but for Alliance War, she's very, very useful for a bunch of questing things. She's quite useful with her immunity to nullify and whatnot, and she has quite a bit amount of versatility. So it's a very handy champion to have. Again, I don't necessarily think outside of like Alliance War you really need her at rank 3 level, but she's performing quite well for a bunch of odd tasks here and there. And then there's obviously Nimrod, which can't be counted, who's not a 7-star, and then there's obviously still a Ghost and a handful of others. That said, let's get to the actual top 10. And fairly big fall from grace. I'm going to give it to Warlock. And it pains me so. It really does pain me so. I think Warlock had maintained his relevance for a very, very long time. But I think it is undeniable that he has taken a massive step back. His biggest use, biggest purpose is still Alliance Wars, obviously, because he can be an exceptional Alliance War attacker. Unfortunately, he hasn't had that much opportunities to showcase it recently, especially because the newer threats in the game, you can't really utilize him to the full degree. Just doesn't quite counter the whole you're going to take infinite amount of no flames for Dark Phoenix type situation, or he doesn't, counter a bunch of newer defense. Like, he's not the greatest for onslaughts, for instance. There are much, much, much better options. And he's not the greatest for, let's say, Captain Britain and a whole bunch of things. He just doesn't seem to be answering the newer threats as well. And his utility, again, is a bit more in slow-paced fights. and therefore he has definitely taken a step back in many areas in the game. And he has become, in my opinion, from a must-have tech staple to more of a pick and choose your like meta and pick and choose your time for Warlock to be useful, which by my own argumentation in the previous videos is exactly the place where you typically place champions at the bottom of the top 10 list, where they're not absolute must-haves, they're not crushing everything, but they are still present in the game and they are useful for the right metas, for the right circumstances. And that's the way I view Warlock right now. For a very long time, he was my favorite tech champion. For quite a while, I thought he's the best tech champion in the game, and he was. I still stick by it. Right now, currently, I think he has definitely kind of taken a step back with the new age defenders that, Kabam is releasing. That said, again, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes from here. I absolutely love the champion. I do have him as a rank 3, relatively decent sig level as well, and I think he's cool. He's like one of the cooler designs Kabam has ever made, in my opinion. A champion that I knew nothing before he was introduced in the game, but as soon as he was introduced in the game, absolutely loved using him. It was one of my first 6-star rank ups, one of my first 7-star rank ups, and I regret nothing. He has, provided a ton of value, and he still, again, has value, hence he is in the top 10. But let's move on. But I'm again, this is going to be controversial. This is going to be absolutely controversial. A lot of people will dislike this placement, but the hype of Fam getting released as 7-star, I think now has, died down. A bit of time has passed. A couple of months has passed since he has been available as 7-star. And I don't think he's doing much. I know plenty of people have ranked him up because, of the Heart of Fire sale rank up materials and stuff. And I do see a whole bunch of rank 4 sig 200 Fams, but hardly see them drafted. I hardly see them doing much aside from getting thrown on defense, and he's not that scary of a defender anymore with, compared to the new edge defenders. For instance, Zola is much scarier than Fam typically on defense. And he's, again, solid. He's good. But one of the bigger issues with Fam, I'd say, is probably the amount of, again, offensive use he has, because he's not necessarily, the most current. Also, the metas do not seem to have enabled him to shine. And I completely and fully am willing to admit that there is very easily a future where 6 months down the line, Fam is one of the hottest tech champions and he's doing a whole bunch of things for the class. And he can do some of, the matchups that now are demanded of us, like Captain Britain and Jean Grey, reasonably well. But again, he's nowhere near like the best options for those fights. In fact, there's just about, I don't think there is a single fight where he's like the best for in the game, or like one of the best options. There are several that he can do, of course there are, but yeah, so far, and this isn't just my sentiment, a lot of people have kind of expressed it in the chat as well, he's not had nowhere near as much of an impact as Tiger and Nick Fury has had on the game, I would say. Again, given time, that could be just the happenstance of the more recent metas that he has been released. Could be just a happenstance of, the more recent champions that have been released. But we are making these lists on the, champion kind of like worth value and the work they have put in the last 6 months overall. And Fam hasn't done that much to get any higher on this list. I was actually quite surprised for this, but I genuinely think this is a fair place for him right now. Again, could easily change. Spot number 8 is Guardian. I mean, that's just simple as that. Guardian is aging so good in the game. Him plus his Relic, still putting in work. And again, unlike Fam, Guardian's actually doing more of the recent matchups, because if he's max sig, his high energy resistance is helping the Neuroshocks. Guardian is kind of much better, for instance, against some random matchups like Bullseye than Fam, for example, is. and he can be quite nukey, and he's still unique, and he still works. We still see him getting used at the highest levels of the game. I do think, again, that there was a while where he was like almost a staple and just what everybody was running him. Now it's not as clear and cut. I do think that there are more metas that do stop him, and actually he kind of went after Kabam Jax left Kabam. There was when he gave everybody the sense of Guardian. This was a funny period of like 4 or 5 months when Guardian was working for none of the metas in game in Alliance War or in Battlegrounds, which I kind of found funny. But since then, you know, he has been consistently useful, not all the time, every time, but overall, I think he's aging well. I think he has solid amount of uses. His biggest downside definitely is the reliance of that max sig and, you know, 6 tons being fairly scarce. But I think he deserves the spot. I genuinely think he provides more value than Fam right now does or Warlock does. And I do think we will continue to see him for quite a while in the game as well. Right, moving on. Spot number 7. I'm putting Jack in there because Jack is on his way up and quite fast. When he got released, people kind of liked him, but you know, they were not necessarily over the moon with him. However, due to the nature of the more recent defenders being released, due to the nature of reverse controls becoming bigger and bigger part of the game and more champions having it in their kits, I do genuinely believe that Jack is currently one of the best answers for several of the defensive threats in the game. Recently, obviously, Captain Britain got a buff. He's one of the best answers for that. He's great for, obviously, Onslaught and Domino as well, especially Awakened. And then he's very solid for Jean Grey. And then, you know, Dust and just about everything else. Additionally, him being able to parry, you know, projectiles makes him a serviceable Zola counter, which is currently, again, very relevant thing. And right now, I do believe that Jack is kind of going from matchup to matchup that he's good and strong at. And therefore, demand for Jack definitely has gone up significantly. Now, I do not want to place him higher than that, because obviously it could still be, you know, a temporarily kind of boost in popularity, similar to other champions that have experienced in the past, for instance, Arcade. But the fact that, you know, he's such a great counter to some of these defenders, and again, reverse controls being more and more present, I do think he has done enough in the last, let's say, 3 months, 2 months. If it was rated on before that point, I probably wouldn't have placed him as high. But it's undeniable that he is currently one of the more active and more used tech champions for the metagame. And he's a very, very solid rank up investment, even unduped. Mine was unduped rank 3 for a very long time. Only recently I managed to awaken him. And another thing that I do like about Jack is that he's very, very simple and straightforward to use. I do think, you know, just level 1, level 2 rotation, it goes straight for level 2s. You know, intercept here or there. Ideally, change his special from heavy, but it's not like a must-have type thing. Access to that cowardice, again, is becoming more significant. And yeah, I do think he's very basic, kind of like well-timed, current relevant champion. And hope he remains that way for foreseeable future. Moving on, spot number 6. Initially, I actually had Prowler a bit higher, but if Jack is a champion that's on his way up right now, I do kind of feel like Prowler is a bit on his way down. If I was to make this list 3 months ago, I'd put Prowler higher, a couple spots for sure, potentially even like spot number 3. Because there was a while where Prowler was the man, but he is taking a step back, and that is happening because, again, the nature of these defensive threats are changing. You know, Neuroshock immunity or some sort of resistance to energy and Neuroshocks becoming more relevant. Access to cowardice buff is becoming more relevant. Immunity to reverse controls is becoming more relevant. And Jack doesn't have that. The cooler thing about Jack is that he does still answer, you know, a significant portion of mutant defensive threats. And then he does, in my opinion, better job kind of branching out of the mutant class. For instance, he's a very, very good core counter. He's, you know, serviceable, not great for Bullseye. But was the best way to put it. There are more and more things in the game that he cannot do, and there are other tech champions and other matchups that are becoming more important. And he's not at the top of those lists at the moment. That said, again, still a very significant, very present champion. You do need to get quite comfortable with using Jack, and his signature ability scaling is just criminal. Whoever made that sig ability like that is just an evil human being, where your first like 140 sig stones matter basically less than the last 60. They're fairly ridiculous scaling. We can see that once 160, even he gets 2000 crit damage boost, and at 200 it's like 4000. It's ridiculously poorly scaled sig. First 80 to 100 sig stones do not matter like at all whatsoever. So that also creates duality for Prowler. You kind of either go all in or you do not bother sigging him. And those are, two fairly different champions, because high sig Prowler has significantly more damage, which again is kind of slowing him down a bit. But he's definitely one of the tech champions we actually see invested in a lot as well. And yeah, overall, I like the champion a lot. I do like him. He has, moderate to mild defensive capabilities as well. Nothing too crazy, but a well-constructed tech champion that will directly respond to how well you are able to use him. And again, the biggest downside of his is that, in order for him to be a fast, good damage-dealing champion, you do need him at Sig 200, and that is obviously easier said than done. Overall, though, still think he's very, very good, but as I said before, I would kind of expect him to place lower in 6 months if the current game trends continue. And the champion that I swapped with him last moment is Sentinel. Now, I do know that in last Invade meta, Sentinel was the god of the game, but overall, it is undeniable that you see much, much more of him. He is one of the more ranked up champions in the tech class as well. You do see him present in plenty of metas and plenty of game modes across the board, and it's rightfully so. Number one, he is, a chunky defender that you do kind of want to have a specific set of abilities to counter. Now, there are plenty of counters to him, but even then, the fight can go wrong, especially when he's awakened, and eating a level 3 from Sentinel in the Battlegrounds match or anywhere in the game is brutal. It just resets the progress. It's so frustrating. But offensively as well, he has quite a bit of utility going on for him. The biggest downside for him in general fights would be typically the speed, I would say. Not like the fastest champion, but aside from Invade meta, obviously, where he was just a nightmare. He was like the most banned champion, I think, for me in Invade meta, and that was a different story. But overall, still, Poison Bleed, Arm Break, Hold Snap, and Frostbite effect immunity, access to heal block, Arm Breaks, Incinerate, and Shock, obviously still very, very significant. And his rework definitely did very much for him, and it is, impossible to deny the fact that he's currently very present, very relevant champion that a lot of people invest in, and rightfully so. Even now, the upcoming metas that, feature regeneration, Sentinel's can probably be very significant for, because he has that super long heal block on his level 1 and access to debuffs. And previous, again, Invade meta, he did great. And in some of the power gain metas, again, he was quite nasty to deal with. And he just currently seems to be one of those champions that is hot and trending. And again, for very, very good reasons. Now let's move on to top 4. And in the 4th place, I do have Shocker. And Shocker is, I think, up there because of consistency. Because, again, he does answer a significant amount of threats in Mutant class and plenty outside of it, which is one of the things that's speaking in favor of Shocker. Additionally, he does pose, moderate, decent defensive value. But, again, he is one of the more ranked and present champions. There are about, if you see, people with tech rank 4s, Shocker is going to be one of the 4 or 5 more popular rank ups for sure in the tech class. And again, that's for a very good reason. Level 1, level 2 rotation with him effectively saving bar power, so making it almost a straight up level 2 rotation for most champions is quite helpful for him. And again, that big burst of damage is a bit of a utility in itself, where you can just bypass a ton of defensive abilities and shorten the duration of the fight with like a single big hit. Helps him for sure. And his little rework, again, have done quite a bit for him. It was quite relevant, again, in some random circumstances like the invade meta. Is good against some of the more current defenders, obviously like Jean Grey as well. Not necessarily Captain Britain, but Jean Grey, definitely he's like one of the faster options against, considering that she's quite chunky. Still need to deal with reverse controls, but he handles that fine. And yeah, a champion that you do need take in consideration whenever he appears, you know, for your dusts, for your onslaughts, and I think he's putting in a solid amount of work. A champion that, fun fact, I was chasing for a very, very long time, and I only managed to acquire like a couple months ago, but now he's already like rank 3, awakened, 670, I believe. I'm not going to give him all the 6 stones because tech class is very hungry for them. And he definitely already has put in a very substantial amount of work for me. And another champion that is kind of refreshingly straightforward to play. You just effectively hit the opponent, level 1, level 2, charge heavy, done. And that is increasingly forgotten or increasingly valuable, I think, in the game right now. More simple rotations, more ability to adjust the way you play the champion is tremendously helpful in being able to bypass different ability sets and nodes. And the fact that, you know, you can use Shocker in several different ways, and yes, all of them will try to feature the heavy attacks, but for instance, level 2 is not the only way you can cash out. Regular stuns can be quite helpful for that as well, or the way you punish opponents' heavy attack or specials with his heavies. All are kind of like underrated aspects of the champion, in my opinion. But there you go. I do think Shocker is currently in the 4th spot. Who takes spot number 3? And it's SpiderMan. And before anybody starts complaining about it, it is 1,000,000% of the battlegrounds. There, I said it. Before you run to the comment section and say this is like a BG list, I said it from the beginning. This list heavily favors and features BGs in Alliance War. And realistically speaking, SpiderMan is like one of the 5 best attackers in battlegrounds. And that has everything to do with 2 things, basically. Number 1, that unlike many other nuke champions that we have in the game, the sucker just carries on working for a ton of champions. If you look even from the recent champion releases, more often than not, he's going to be great for the new age defenders. So he's like a champion from 2017 that just happened to be one of the better and faster photon counters. It just happened to be one of the better and faster onslaught counters. It just happened to be one of the better and faster Zola counters. It just somehow happens to be a very viable, safe, and relatively fast Thanos counter with the class disadvantage. The champion that just happens to, for instance, be also very good with gentle with parry heavies. That happens, and so on and so forth. More often than not, with the new, like Enchantress, again, he's often one of the better options for Enchantress and can nuke that fight down very fast. It's kind of crazy how many champions he can take in a fight. And unlike many other champs that are, let's say, quote unquote, versatile and has a large list of matchups, also one of the faster ones in them. Like, you know, random Lumatrix comes out. Hey, turns out nuking Lumatrix's Starkey was like the best way how to counter him in many of the metas, like him and Juggernaut. And that kind of leads us to his, you know, second reason. Besides him being, you know, quite compatible with many of the new defenders, in between the Relic, heavy attack, and his special one, you can nuke down just about anything in the game that doesn't have a direct ability to stop that. Oh, Bullseye. I forgot to mention Bullseye before. So what I mean by that is that typically you spend like X amount of time ramping up his poise charges, which I will admit I have always hated and have never enjoyed, you know, SpiderMan's ramp up process. Once that's ramped up, you effectively need to land like 2-3 combos, And then you can go from special 1, then you stun the opponent, then you go into the relic, and then you can spam a special 1, and then potentially another one, and just about everything's dead by then. And if you think you're not going to be able to kill it, then after the relic, you just throw a heavy attack and you're like safe from level 3. So he's also a champion that has synergized incredibly well with relics, strikers as such. And that, stun loop is proving to be, just crazy powerful, honestly. It's like one of the more OP things in the competitive game right now, I think. And God, the time has changed. I used to crap on this champion so much for all the Starkey fanboys, because there was a very significant portion of the time when Starkey was irrelevant. And again, the nature of the game has changed. The relevance of champions has shifted, obviously, because of Battlegrounds, because of the new defenders and everything else. And the man's a menace now. There's no other way to put it. The man is an absolute menace. Right, let's move on. Second best tank, I think, is Zola. It's quite simple as that. You get a Zola, you rank a Zola. He's very chunky, very annoying on defense, has limited uses offensively, but he does have uses offensively. Unfortunately, for attack, you do want him at the super high sig, but it's, not here nor there. You're not going to invest 6 in him, I think, because he's not that great of an attacker, but still. He has some offensive use for sure, but 90% of use for Zola is defense. There are relatively few champions that nuke him. Now we have Caroline and Dean. Obviously, that's like a direct counter. And it's like probably one of the faster options. But in general, again, the key of Zola's success is that even if you get through the fight, quite often you will either A, have taken some chip damage, or B, have taken a significant amount of time. And that goes kind of like to his general chunkiness. Obviously, special attack damage does very, very little to him. And then, he has his level 2 that puts disintegration on you. That's passive. That's not easy to get rid of. That will do, some damage to you. And again, you need incline those heavy attacks often will mean chip damage in the block. And right now, there is just absolutely no question that he is like one of the top 5 defensive champions in the game. Maybe top 8 or something like that. But he's present. You play the game competitively, you're going to get to face him a lot. Combine him with some annoying nodes and you get a very, very bad time. And again, he's one of those champions that basically requires a very specific set of counters, or you're effectively just going to lose. And yeah, outside of competitive modes, I actually kind of enjoy using him offensively, by the way. Because then you don't have to deal with stand your ground and he can do some wacky and crazy things. Right, that said, I think Zola is second best tank champion in the game. Again, mainly for his defense. So if you're not into competitive game modes, well, then Zola is not the champion for you, probably. And potentially Starkey, neither. But overall, he is, I'd argue, probably the most popular tech rank 4 as well. I think if you would, make some sort of a count census for Kabam, I think Zola is the most ranked tech champion, rank 4 tech champion in the game right now. Another tech champion that you do see quite a lot of at rank 4, and only reason why I think is a bit less ranked than Zola is because obviously defenders are kind of like priority for competitive modes, but he kind of fits that bill too. I do think right now the best and most relevant champion is Red Skull. The only reason why we do not see more Red Skulls at rank 4 is because he does a very good job at punching up, and also because he works on defense. He works regardless of being rank 3 or 4. But I think Red Skull is currently the best tech champion in the game. Still, he's definitely the one that's most present, the one that's most used, and bet a lot of people find an issue with it. Realistically, if you look at it, he is more than solid on defense. Obviously, he has counters. We have Medusas and Nulls and Deathless Thanos and so on and so forth. Every champion has counters. Zola has, plenty of counters too. There's Great Bishops, Deathless Thanos, Starkhands, SpiderMans, Titanias and Tigers and whatnot. Zola has counters too, but is still very relevant on defense because without a counter, you will effectively time out and suffer. 1. But 2, he has significant offensive uses too, where again he's, I'd argue, probably the best domino counter in competitive situations, safest and the fastest. And then on top of it all, he can do a bunch of random matchups relatively fine if you are skilled enough. Like, you know, he's solid against Lumitrix, he is solid against Zola itself as well. Again, not the best, but kind of serviceable. And yeah, Jean Grey, for instance, he's quite good against that too. And he's one of those champions that just happens to work more often than not. If we look back for vast majority of the nodes, metas, events, he works well. Immune from Nullify, Fate Seal, and Stagger effects from champions. Then against mutants, his ability actually cannot be modified at all. Obviously, that protects him from Domino perfectly. His armor buffs make him incredibly chunky, so making him mistakes with him is significantly less costly. He has massive crit resistance too. And then, you know, he has access to power control, he has access to heal block, he has access to burst of damage, and massive amounts of shock damage and unstoppable. That's what all he really needs, man. It's very simple, straightforward to play and use. Yeah. I do believe that Red Skull still, currently, is the best tech champion in the game. In fact, like, as a fun kind of like thing, that's also the exact reason why the top 2 champions are the ones that I have chosen to rank 4 first in the tech class. I really wanted to rank 4 Starkey too, but there are reasons beyond that. But there you go. I think Red Skull currently is still sitting at top of tech class. And again, I do know that this list is going to be controversial for sure. And I'm not saying it because I want, you know, people to disagree with me or it's for clicks or views or something like that. No. That is genuinely how I view the game right now. Again, as I said before, tech class does not have like one champion that's head and shoulder above others. It doesn't have even that big divide. Like in any other class, there's like a significant difference of power levels in between, let's say top 1 and top 2 and then top 7 and 10 champions. In tech class, I think top 15 champions are, you know, on a very similar footing. I do not think there's a massive difference from spot number 12 in tech class to spot number 2, for example. But that's a double-edged sword. I do think that has given tech class a new life for sure, where you kind of like pick and choose your tool for the appropriate situations. Again, you know, I think top 3 will be the ones that give you the most value more often. But outside of those top 3, let's say, you know, there will be metas where Jack's great, there will be metas when he's going to suck and you're going to want to use Ironheart. There will be metas where, you know, Sentinel is amazing for, and there will be metas where he kind of sucks and you want to use Hulkbuster or Arcade. It's very kind of interchangeable depending on exactly what you're trying to do, what are the nodes, and so on and so forth. That is also the reason why I do not rate tech class higher right now. I do think they are completely missing kind of like the heavy hitters of their class. Let me know what you guys think. But as a summary here, ta-da! New Tech Top 10. Red Skull, Zola, Starkhand, SpiderMan, Shocker, Sentinel, Prowler, Jack-O-Lantern, Guardian, Fam, and Warlock. Honorable mentions went out to Shuri, Bastion, Arcade, Ironheart, Omega Sentinel, Penny Parker. There you go. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the